Source.
All right, 23 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this, hey, it's Friday, Rowan. Friday morning. You know, one of the things that I remember from not too many Fridays ago was we had this just a fun Friday morning, and then that was the morning that we had the local shooting at Forest High School.
Yeah.
And thank God it worked out that nobody was killed. There was one student that was wounded in the ankle, and he's doing okay from what I understand. But that guy with that gun, he could have, he could have killed some people in that school. Had it not been for the protocol of the school, the superintendent, Heidi Mayer, had this very, very profound wisdom to keep the doors locked in the classrooms. I mean, it seems something as simple as that is what saved that day, and that was after the horrible shooting in Parkland on Valentine's Day. And so when these things happen, there was a shooting at the newspaper in Annapolis. 5 journalists and workers at the newspaper were killed. You know, it is just so senseless. And you think to yourself, what is possibly the solution to any of this, or what's the cause for all of this? We all try to rationalize and figure it out, you know. And we live in a country where we have the right to bear arms, the right to protect ourselves. And you've seen the bumper sticker, and the bumper sticker is right. If you outlaw guns, then only outlaws will have guns, right? And that is absolutely true. So what do we do? Dave Workman is on the phone. He is an award-winning career journalist. He's a spokesperson for the Second Amendment Foundation. He's a senior editor of thegunmag.com. He's a contributor to Liberty Park Press, Conservative Firing Line, and several firearms periodicals. He's an op-ed writer. He's an authority on firearms, concealed carry. Oh my gosh, look at all these credentials. If I read them all, we're not going to have any time. Gun violence in America is what he wants to talk to us about. Dave Workman, it's an honor to have you on our show. Good morning, sir.
Well, it's very kind of you to have me. I appreciate the opportunity. First things first, let's not talk about gun violence. Let's talk about violence, because if you stab somebody, that's not knife violence.
There you
the
go.
guy that ran over all those people in New York.
That's right.
That wasn't rental car violence. Why single out the gun to demonize it? That's something that really bothers a lot of people in the firearms community.
Well, I will apologize if that's how I made it sound. I didn't mean it that way, because I'm on your side.
I know you did. I know you didn't.
Yeah.
But the term has become part of the lexicon in America.
I hear you. Yeah.
It's really wrong.
I mean,
when a good guy shoots a bad guy, that's not gun violence. That's self-defense, or maybe it's community service. But
do you know, 2 days ago on the 4th of July, we were putting a little bit of our show together. We do show prep, and so just kind of fun. I thought, well, let's see if there's any patriotic things on that came from the movies. And so there was actually somebody put together a list, the most patriotic speeches in movies, and one of them was from a movie called The American President, I think, right? With what's this?
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. So he gives the speech. And at the end of it, he's basically saying we need to do something about controlling firearms. And I thought, well, wow, that was a complete turnaround from the beginning of the speech when he said he's with the American Civil Liberties Union, who supports the Constitution.
Yeah.
So how can you support the Constitution at the same time want to undo one of the basic rights that keeps us Americans?
Yeah, I've seen that film, and the business about guns in the last 5 minutes of the film, I think that came out of somebody's political hat to wrap up the script and fire up the audience, and it was very subtle politics, and it had nothing to do with the plot of the movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the movie, but I saw the speech, and I thought the same thing that you just said, that there was somebody with a little bit of a political agenda, which is not unusual in Hollywood. And speaking of Hollywood, I mean, Hollywood, if we're going to blame anybody for I don't know, for making it seem like shooting is an easy thing to do. It's Hollywood. I mean, they showed us shooting people all the time, and nobody seemed to be like writhing in pain for 3 hours before they died. Nobody was bleeding out of their ear. No, I mean, they're just dead. Remember?
Yeah. And it's funny that some of the big quote unquote action stars have been some of the biggest proponents of gun control too, and the logic there escapes me, except that they've made millions of dollars telling the rest of us how to live. So
what do you think? Where do you think we're going as far as a country? Do you see? Well, let me ask you this about the more powerful guns, and forgive me for being very ignorant about guns because I'm not a gun guy. But when you hear things like AR-15, for example, am I saying it right? I don't even know if I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the AR-15, and the standard cartridge for that is the 5.56 millimeter NATO /223 Remington, and that's not really that powerful a cartridge. If you compare that to say the 30-06 that I used to shoot deer or elk with, and it's no contest because the cartridges are far different. The 223 is a lot smaller. I think they equate this with stuff that they see on TV and in the movies,
right.
And because it makes a big noise, they say, "Oh God, that's powerful! It makes a big noise. It made me spill my popcorn." But in the reality of it, there's just no reality at all.
Is there any part of your opinion that does agree with part of the speaking points of the left, where they want to get rid of certain guns? Is there anything about that you would agree with, or should all guns be okay? I mean, should a machine gun be? I know it's not legal right now, but should it be legal? That kind of thing.
Well, in many states, machine guns are legal. I know people who own full-auto weapons, and they've owned them for years, haven't harmed anybody. You have to go through a lengthy background check. You got to buy I think it's $200 tax stamp. I don't own one because I just personally don't really have any use for them. But a lot of guys they go out to these big machine gun shoots every year. They have a hell of a good time. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody suffers even a scratch. And then a lot of people collect these things too. Paul Allen, the Microsoft billionaire, he's got a tank, I think, that he bought from somebody as a showpiece, a museum piece. So, frankly, when we talk about firearms and firearms regulations, do I think there are some people who shouldn't have guns? You bet I do. Convicted felons, violent felons, crazy people. Nobody wants a crazy person walking around with a firearm.
Right.
But the average law-abiding citizen who has no criminal intent at all, why burden him and penalize him or her because of the crimes committed by lunatics and madmen and criminals?
Usually, after the shootings, there are groups that come out and say, if we had tougher gun laws, if we did this, these shootings wouldn't have happened. How do you respond to those groups?
That's nonsense, because we already have some pretty tough gun laws, and each one of these shooters violated every one of them. So somebody's going to have to explain to the American people just why they think the next law is going to solve this problem, because it's really not. The gun control crowd, bless their hearts, I think they have some good intent, but they've got a lot of bad intent to get where they want to go.
I think, on their behalf, I think they have absolute good intent. I just think they haven't thought it through, and I know they're probably
there you go, yeah,
disagreeing with me on that one. Let me ask you this: are we, as a society, obligated to honor the Second Amendment on private property? Do I have the right, as the owner of Disney World, for example, to say you can't bring your gun in here? Because you can't. In Disney World, the Second Amendment does not exist.
Well, remember, the Second Amendment is a limit on government, not on private property rights.
Okay.
If I want to post my business, for example, no firearms allowed, that would be my right as a business owner or property owner. But if I was, say, a lawmaker, a governor someplace, or a member of Congress, the idea of the Second Amendment is just to tell me, hey, wait a minute, Congressman Workman, you can't legislate away a right that's delineated in the Constitution. You can't infringe on that right.
Right.
So a lot of people kind of lose that perspective. The amendments in the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the Fourth, the Third, all of those are limits on government, not on private
Absolutely,
property.
yeah, we're on the same track there. The reason I was asking it that way is because in schools, which is one of the main concerns, well, let me go back to Disney World. If I go into Disney World, I'm well aware that it's possible that somebody there has something that can do me harm. It's possible they got in there. But the safeguards at the gates are so strong. They make such great effort to make sure nobody comes into that place with a gun. They have dogs. They have whatever they've got. They've
Metal
got whatever they.
detectors.
Okay. So now, if we made a smaller area, because Disney is huge, but a school, if we had that same kind of protection at a school, so that when I'm walking through a school, I'm not allowed to have a gun in that school, and I know that nobody else could possibly have one, or at least it wouldn't be. But this kid who walked into the school here in Ocala a couple Fridays ago, whatever it was, a couple months ago, on a Friday, he had a shotgun in a guitar case and just walked right in.
Yeah, that's a problem I think that must be dealt with by the local school officials, because we've got this Gun-Free School Zones Act, and we've all seen just how well that thing has worked. If we want to have secure schools, we're going to have to accept the financial responsibility and the other responsibilities, and of course the logistics of doing all of that. That's all going to cost money. But there's another side to that, too. Do you want your children growing up thinking that they have to go to school in a prison-like atmosphere? Schools are supposed to be places where kids learn and they are encouraged to use the thought process and develop it. How do you do that behind barbed wire?
No, I know, and I don't know that barbed wire is the answer. I just feel that there has to be something in place to make it very, very difficult, the way it is at a bank, the way it is at the courthouse, the way it is at Disney World. I mean, it's so difficult to bring a gun or a knife or anything, metal even, into the courthouse. So why can't we have that same thing? I don't think it looks like a jail. And P.S., if my son has to go to a school that looks like a jail and I know it's going to keep him safe, I have no problem with it.
Well, and certainly I understand that. My sons are both full-grown men now, but they went to school in a school out here in very rural Washington State. It was not unusual to see people driving them down the road with guns in their pickup trucks. The whole community.
Oh yeah.
Well armed, but none of those kids ever suffered a scratch.
That's the culture I grew up in. I grew up in the culture where the pickup truck with the gun in the rack. Yeah, everybody's parked in the parking lot. Yeah, it is a different world. Yeah.
When I was in high school, we had a rifle team at that high school.
Yeah.
We had a rifle team when I went to junior high school.
Yeah.
And it was not unusual after school during the fall, somebody'd say, hey, let's go see if we can shoot a grouse or something this afternoon, go rabbit hunting. They'd jump in the car or the truck and head out to the field. Somebody would have a gun in there.
Yeah, right.
And nobody ever got shot.
So what do you think is the solution?
I don't know. I see. That's the thing. And people ask me this all the time because guns are my beat. It's what I write about. They say, "What do you think is the solution?" I wish I knew. If I knew the answer to that, we'd all have a lot better country here. But I don't.
Dave, let me ask you a different way then, because I think I have a different way of asking you the same question, and I think when I ask you the different way, you'll have a very profound answer, actually. So I ask you, what do you think is the answer? So the question that I have is two parts. What do you think is not the answer? And what would happen if we did do the thing that is not the answer?
Well, what is not the answer is to pass one more law that's going to penalize every law-abiding gun owner in the country for reasons that none of us can comprehend, only on the promise that, gee, this is going to prevent a crime when it really isn't going to do that at all. I think in the school type environment, which seems to be the focus right now, we can't, as I said earlier, I don't think we want to really turn these schools into prison type atmospheres. We want to keep them secure, of course. I know a lot of school districts around the country have started very quietly allowing teachers and or administrators to have firearms if they've gone through the training. And there's a training program that got started up in Ohio a few years ago that seems to be working very well. Other school districts, and I've written about this, have off-duty police officers, or they've actually got assigned police officers or sheriff's deputies as school resource officers. That is certainly one thing. Of course, we know what happened in Parkland too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that exact opposite thing is what happened here. I don't know that ours made it to you, the news that happened here.
Yeah, I know about it.
Okay, but our school resource officer and a quick-thinking teacher and some protocol put in place by the superintendent, all those things came together, and the policy and the procedure of the sheriff's office. I mean, all those things came together. Now, we may have benefited from Parkland, because I think a lot of that came together like in the short period of time after Parkland, but they put it together right away.
Yeah, and see, it does actually. I hate to bring this up, but you remember the program that used to be on TV called the A-Team?
Yes.
And George Papard was in that. And at the end of every program, he would say, "I love it when a plan comes together." Well, there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yes, there is.
And I really hate it when a plan falls apart.
Yeah. Well, and the weak link in the plan in Parkland was that deputy, and I know he's probably he probably feels horrible about it. I'm not trying to lay it on him, but he made a mistake, and it definitely probably made a difference in the negative way.
Well, it certainly seems to have, and I'm not even going to go there. That guy. He's had enough grief for 10 people that I know. So
there is another element, I think, to self-protection, because after the Capital Gazette, the shooter was in there. One of the stories was that there was an employee there that he had two handguns with him, and he was under his desk. If he would have come out trying to help somebody, maybe the law enforcement officials would have thought he was a shooter also and shot him. How do the law enforcement officers know when they go to try to help in these attacks that they're not going to shoot any good guys?
Well, that's not quite accurate the way you said. The guy with the two handguns he worked for a different business on a different floor of that same building.
Oh.
Apparently he had these two handguns in his desk, which I'm kind of wondering about that because of Maryland's strict gun laws. But downstairs, I think 2 or 3 floors down is where the shooting took place. Now, as far as good guys mistaking other good guys for bad guys, there is a risk to that. There's always a risk. I know of stories, in fact, I've even written about a couple over the years, where undercover police officers actually got shot and killed by uniforms that responded to an emergency. Those things do happen. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to try to make people believe they don't. But balance that against something that happened out here in Washington State about 4 weeks ago. There was a nutball who tried to hijack 2 or 3 cars. He actually shot at one car and hurt a 16-year-old. He made his way to a Walmart parking lot where he shot and seriously injured a motorist while he was trying to hijack that guy's car. There were 2 armed citizens in that Walmart. Both of them responded. One of them got a clear shot and killed the guy. And that was before the police even arrived. And the police were there pretty darn fast. When they got there, they could tell pretty well who the good guys and the bad guys were.
You know, something you said earlier, too, and I don't know anything about Maryland's gun laws, but it sounds like when you said Maryland has strict gun laws, it sounds like that's the perfect example of where the gun laws didn't work.
I have written several times that gun laws have been failures. In fact, I think I wrote where the Maryland gun laws, that's another gun law failure. It disarmed the wrong people. Now, newspapers are, I hesitate to use the word notorious, but newspapers are well known to be fairly liberal enclaves. Not a lot of people own guns in typical newsrooms. Maybe none of them own guns in a typical newsroom. But if there had been somebody armed when that guy came through the door, it might have turned out differently. I don't know. I'm just suggesting that. And so, you know, there's two sides to every argument here.
Dave, we're out of time, but tell me, give our listeners a way to get in touch with you or to look up more information. You have a website for thegunmag.com, correct?
Yeah, it's thegunmag.com, and then there's Liberty Park Press and Conservative Firing Line. You can look them up online, and I also write a weekly column for American Handgunner online.
Okay. I don't know, just a recommendation, well, maybe you've already been on her show. Have you ever been on Dana Lash's show?
No.
Do you know who she is?
I know who she is.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you guys would be able to talk shop. She knows her guns. She's a gun girl, right?
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on this show, Dave. And I really am on your side. I really do think we need to do something, and it is not to undo the Second Amendment. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Friends, countrymen, tourists, and Ocalans, lend me your ears. Hey, speaking of ears, there is an opportunity for you to help feed and provide good maintenance, housing, and medical care for Marion County's rescued big cats, bears, monkeys, and other disabled or unreleasable wild and exotic animals. Take a tour on Wednesdays or Saturdays of the Endangered Animal Rescue Sanctuary. Call 352-266-2859. The Endangered Animal Rescue Sanctuary is affectionately known as EARS.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris.